Clyde was your hero, your icon, I want to tell you a little bit about how much he was for all of us as well. So Clyde on a world stage, and there are three major things I just want to talk about in this one. One is the 1990 book that he edited with Dan Keating, Developmental Health and the Wealth of Nations, which really became the Bible of early child development. The second was the WHO Social Determinants of Health Commission that was chaired by Michael Marmot. And I believe that the EDI should become, and probably is becoming, the international GDP of child development. Society is shown to have three classes of factors. At the most intimate level are the factors associated with social support, the children in the middle of our society. The photos of these brains on the right-hand side there of children in Romanian orphanages who were neglected for the first 6 to 12 months of their lives with irreversible brain damage occurring compared with the child on the left. So this Pathways to Resilience came directly out of Clyde's book. And of course, the flip side to that is the pathways to vulnerability. On those causal pathways, there are multiple opportunities for intervention to turn those pathways around. Early intervention works. Okay, the WHO Commission. Michael Marmot has told me that Chapter 5 of that commission was the most important chapter. That early child development is the great equalizer. This is where we can break the cycles of deprivation. And early child development is the best investment for nations. Dramatic differences. It works. GDP growth of 1% for every 1% reduction in EDI vulnerability. It's almost like the EDI going viral, and we have made a huge difference because of Clyde Hertzman. I think Clyde was probably a bit peeved that we had a national rollout of the AEDI before Canada had the national rollout of the EDI. National economic prosperity, Mr. Howard. And this was the thing we reckoned you could turn around much more quickly and much more effectively by investing in early childhood. We got federal and state governments on board. We got the EDI funded. We had data, linked data, on a whole lot of things which I call the wicked problems. These wicked problems have a complex causation, often multifactorial. Many start in early childhood. Prevention is the real message that we needed to get across here. We've linked now the longitudinal study of Australian children into the EDI, and the linked data is absolutely important. So here is the AEDI, the Australian Early Development Index. 96.5% of all children in Australia now are having this 5-domain assessment at aged 5. So early childhood intervention compared with children who don't. Look at that gap. I would love Clyde to have seen this next slide, because what we did was to do what he did, and that is to give the data back to this community. What happened? A universal early literacy project, a targeted Indigenous playgroup, a community park project focusing on physical and social development for children. Wouldn't Clyde just love that? And the outcomes have been absolutely miraculous. They are national models. The kind of schedule of universal early childhood services. We can start in pregnancy and go right through to adolescence and now beyond. And what's been absolutely fantastic is the linkage, the partnerships that we've developed. We would not have got this data up, I believe, this fantastic project, if it hadn't been for Clyde Hertzman. We've got to widen the audience to those not traditionally thought of as stakeholders. So one of the things I'm going to suggest is, like we used to have environmental impact assessments, that we have a child impact assessment. And in fact, we can measure it, because of course, we've got the EDI. Now, having solved early childhood for everybody and reducing inequalities and all the rest of it, should we now change the world? I think Clyde would like us to do that. And it's about using measures other than GDP to measure and foster the progress of society. I mean, if you sell more cigarettes, your GDP goes up. If you have a war and sell more arms, your GDP goes up. Even if we had no other measure, I reckon that if we had EDI around the world, those countries that had good EDIs and a very low proportion of kids vulnerable on the EDI would be the best countries in the world. And does science have a soul? Yes, and its name was Clyde Hertzman. Thank you very much.